No data? No problem. With the lowest data rates in the country, have extra fun with SLT Extra GB.
For more details, call 1212.
Tonight, 2 against 1. Prime Minister and the opposition leader pulling in the opposite direction over the president favoured death penalty. Grave consequences await. Former diplomat hit axe out of the park, lambasting the government for blindly walking into it.
The US expects not only this government but future administrations of this country also to comply with the commitments.
Dark at the end of the tunnel. Fuel supply to the Ceylon Electricity Board said to be halted at midnight. Kim accepts olive branch. Donald Trump makes history by setting foot in North Korea. All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Sunday, the 30th of June 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් ෆෑර් ඇන්ඩ් ලව්ලි මෙන් ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. ෆෑර් ඇන්ඩ් ලව්ලි මෙන් ඇන්ටි මාක්ස් ක්‍රීම්.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 on AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to our top story tonight. Trade unions of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is adamant that their decision to stop fuel supply to the Ministry of Power and Energy at midnight will not change. The planned move to cut off fuel to the ministry comes at the heels of Subject Minister Ravi Karunanayake intervening to halt repair work of a dilapidated oil pipeline which runs from the Colombo harbour to the oil storage terminal in Kolonava. He backed some residents who had illegally built their houses on top of the pipeline. The minister, however, today put the onus of the entire affair on the CPC for failing to fund alternative housing for the would-be displaced.
A protest was launched by a group of residents recently when the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation attempted to carry out repair work on a dilapidated oil pipeline which runs from the Colombo harbour to the oil storage terminal in Kolonava. According to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, the pipeline, which is said to run underneath their houses, is at the risk of exploding. The houses, however, are illegal constructions. Almost all of the 5 kilometers long pipeline is laid so far, with only 140 meters remaining. Trade unions at the Ceylon Petroleum said that the repairs were halted when Minister of Power and Energy Ravi Karunanayake intervened to side with the protesters. Minister Karunanayake, however, moved to clarify his stance on the matter to media today.
We cannot allow the incompetence of Sipetco, which prevailed for the past 11 years, to affect the innocent people of Colombo North. As a parliamentarian from the area, I will not allow them to be chased away from their homes. We are fulfilling the promises made to them. This issue has to be taken up with the subject minister Kabir Hashim. Houses have been allocated by the Urban Development Authority. Sipetco only has to provide the necessary funds for this. They have been struggling with it for the past 15 months or so.
Meanwhile, Minister of Highways, Road Development and Petroleum Resources Development, Kabir Hashim expressed hope of providing a solution to the issue with the intervention of the Prime Minister.
I spoke to the Prime Minister about the issue and requested that we be provided a solution so that we can start repairs as soon as possible. The Prime Minister said he will resolve the matter. Therefore, I believe that the supply of oil to the Ministry of Power and Energy will not come to a halt. I will hold discussions with our unions and come up with a solution which will not affect relevant stakeholders. We should be able to reach an agreement soon.
Today, however, Secretary of the National Trade Union Federation, YPG Jailila, said that they will not veer from their decision to hold fuel supplies to the Ministry of Power and Energy from midnight today.
We said that we will stop supplying oil to the Ministry of Power and Energy by midnight today. Therefore, the trade union will hold supply to the ministry by midnight, and we hope that the relevant authorities will pay attention to this.
Sri Lanka has recruited 2 executioners following the president's announcement that 4 prisoners convicted of drug offences are to face the death penalty in what would be the first use of capital punishment in 43 years. Over 100 candidates had responded to an advertisement posted in February for men aged between 18 and 45 with strong moral character and mental strength. 2 Americans and 2 women had also applied. The prisons department began the recruitment process in March after the last executioner quit in 2014, citing stress after seeing the gallows for the first time. Another hired last year never turned up for work. Prison spokesman Tushara Upuldeniya said that the 2 successful candidates will undergo 2 weeks of training. After the President's announcement last week that he had signed the death warrants of 4 prisoners, the European Union along with the UK, France and Norway condemned the decision. The EU said the death penalty is a cruel, inhuman and degrading punishment, and the EU unequivocally opposes its use in all circumstances and all cases. Meanwhile, Amnesty International said it was shocked and outraged by the President's announcement and argued that executions for drug-related offences were unlawful because they did not meet the threshold for more serious crimes such as intentional killing. With President Maithripala Sirisena digging his heels in over his decision to move forward with the death penalty, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe seems to be pulling in the opposite direction. Speaking at a public rally in Munaragala today, the Premier said the capital punishment goes against his party's principles and expressed hope of having talks with the Speaker and party leaders on the matter.
It has been suggested that the death penalty will be implemented. It is against our party's principles. I spoke to opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa about this and he too was against it. I held discussions with the JVP and they too opposed this, with the TNA also saying that they were against it. 4 main parties in Parliament are against the death penalty. I hope to speak about this with the Speaker because the stance of the Parliament has been clearly expressed. By the end of next week, we will hold a discussion on this matter and we will meet with the President. If the Speaker wishes, he can invite party leaders to it, where we hope to come up with a solution.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa once more reiterated concerns over the President's decision to move ahead with the death penalty. Speaking at an event in Colombo today, the opposition leader added that even though the President's intentions are righteous, he is wrongly influenced in this regard by certain factions.
A reason why the President was pushed to implement the death penalty is perhaps because he was influenced and misled by those who did not have religious education. They want to influence society negatively. He is using powers granted by the Constitution to get this done. I believe the President is doing this with no other intention but in hope that this will put society back on the right track. But I believe it is best that the President does not go ahead with the death penalty. Our country is entering into certain agreements like the SOFA agreement. Everyone in the country is against forces from other nations entering this country. There should be a limit to all of this.
Acquisition and Cross-Services Agreement, also known as ACSA, has always been a sensitive topic, with some factions questioning how Sri Lanka stands to benefit from the pact. Former diplomat Dr. Payitha Kohona is the latest to take aim at the agreement, saying that despite it being a bilateral agreement, only one party stands to benefit. Addressing a seminar in Colombo recently, the diplomat warned that by inking the updated agreement in 2017, Sri Lanka runs the risk of unwittingly supporting the United States military clout in the Indian Ocean region.
We had an agreement signed between the US and Sri Lanka in 2007, ACSA. That agreement contained only 8 pages of content. It also had a termination provision. It was to come to an end after 10 years. And we know from WikiLeaks, the US ambassador at the time wrote to the State Department stating categorically this agreement will not oblige the US to provide any assistance to the Sri Lankan government in its struggle against the LTTE. The new agreement contains over 80 pages of content and then 50 annexes, facilitates the provision of supplies and services to the US military. Did we really need such a detailed cross-services agreement with the United States at this time? I can see what the US wanted out of this, But what did we want out of that? The US obviously has military establishments, facilities around the world. For them to have another base in the middle of the Indian Ocean to obtain supplies from and fuel for their ships and aircraft. One of the provisions says this is bilateral, this is mutual. So you can imagine the great Sri Lankan Navy sailing into the New York harbor looking for supplies and fuel. It is never going to happen. Sri Lankan Air Force assets will not have to land in the US for any reason in the foreseeable future. And of course, there is another risk in this agreement. If the US were to use Sri Lanka extensively to obtain these facilities from Sri Lanka, at a time when the US is confronting, on the one hand, China, and on the other hand, Iran, are we going to get involved in these global power struggles unwittingly or wittingly? Because we did not sign this agreement blindly. As a country, as a government, we knew what we were signing. We have brought upon ourselves a problem that we did not have to begin with, and a problem with which we will have to struggle in the future. A statement made by the American ambassador about a week ago should concern all of us. She said that she expects Sri Lanka to honor the agreements, even though there may be changes of government in the future. So the US expects not only this government, but future administrations of this country also to comply with the commitments in this 80-page document.
The deputy chairman of the Naramala Pradesh Sabha, arrested over an alleged assault of a police constable, is remanded until the 3rd of July after being produced before the Kulyapitiya Magistrates Court. Speaking to AdaDerana, police media spokesperson SP Ruwangunasekara said that the constable was hospitalized with injuries following the incident. Meanwhile, another police constable of the Ministerial Security Division sustained injuries after being allegedly assaulted by the son of UMP parliamentarian Shanta Abesekara. Preliminary investigations reveal that the alleged incident took place following a heated argument between the constable and the son of MP Abesekara. The officer is currently receiving treatment at hospital. Meanwhile, 3 persons, including an expectant mother, were killed in a collision between a van and a lorry near Talava along the Anuradhapura-Kurunegala road. 6 persons had been travelling in the van at the time and were admitted to the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital after sustaining critical injuries. 3 women, including a pregnant mother among the injured, later succumbed. The group had been on their way to the hospital to admit the expectant mother for delivery when tragedy struck. The driver and the passenger of the lorry are also receiving treatment in hospital. The mother, who was left, is in critical condition after being swept away by currents at the Kirinda beach recently, passed away last night. She, along with her husband and 2 daughters, were rescued after being swept out to sea at the Kirinda beach on the 23rd of this month. Her husband and the 2 daughters were pronounced dead upon admission to hospital on the day of the tragedy. Now, after fighting for her life for almost a week, the mother too succumbed last evening. We will now cross over to a short commercial break. The 43rd medical camp of the series of clinics conducted by AdaDerana to address medical conditions relating to kidney disease was worked off at the Yapahua temple yesterday. The clinic was conducted in partnership with the Youth Association of Yapahua, the Sri Lanka Eye Donation Society, Leeson's Hospital Ragama and Sri Lanka Medical Nutrition Association, as well as the International Institute of Health Sciences. The visiting public were given free eye checkups and blood tests as well as medical advice. Furthermore, solar panels were provided to 14 households without electricity in the area by Octon Marketing Services. Co-founder and chairman of Mass Holdings Mahesh Amalin says that connecting villages to local and international markets are vital if the country is to take full advantage of its rural economy. This, he says, can be done by providing better logistic infrastructure to rural areas. Meanwhile, founder and president of Sarvodaya Shramadana movement, Dr. AdaDerana, is of the view that effective political leadership is needed to stop politicization of government departments concerning welfare and development. They were speaking at the 180th annual general meeting of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce held in Colombo recently.
But when I think about the village in Sri Lanka today, we have challenges with skill levels, we have challenges with infrastructure, last mile delivery. What is your advice harnessing the power of the village?
Connecting villages to either marketplaces locally or connecting villages to marketplaces internationally is important. And the need for better infrastructure and better logistics infrastructure is critical for produce to reach local marketplaces and reach global marketplaces.
Now, when I think of certain communities as they existed 50 years ago and today, they have not made any advancements. There is something wrong in the way we have handled our economy. Now, the health and well-being of an economy, if it could be measured by currency, in 1975, $1, 6 rupees here. Today, how much? 175? So what can the village people do about it? In the business field, in all professions, I have come across excellent people. But these people are not made use of. All these things can be put right if this politicization of every department in this country that is concerned with welfare and development of the people could be put right. There need to be fearless leaders who are ready to die to make other people live. Unless we have that, all your effort will fail. If the thing that happened in 21st of April happens again, how can you do business? Economic well-being should not be allowed to be destroyed by the way that international currency is influencing on our currency.
Sri Lankan shares ended firm at a more than 1 week high on Fridays, buoyed by gains in beverage stocks, posting their first monthly gain this year, while the rupee edged up on dollar sales as month-end inward remittances surpassed importers' greenback demand. Foreign investors bought a net 879.6 million rupees worth of government securities in the week ended June 19, but the island's net foreign outflow was at 20.7 billion rupees so far this year. Meanwhile, foreign holdings in Sri Lankan rupee bonds grew by 2.3 billion rupees to 147.1 billion rupees for the week ended June 26. Foreign investors have been net sellers in rupee bonds so far in 2019, with holdings falling from 157 billion rupees on January 2nd after interest rates fell, allowing them to take profits. Meanwhile, market analysts expect low investor interest at the Colombo Bourse owing to low market activity forecast during the course of next week. This week, the All-Share Price Index gained 0.2%, while the S&P 20 increased 0.3%, with the average daily turnover down from last week to 519 million rupees. We now have Dimantha Matthew from First Capital Holdings with your market forecast.
With the successful issuance of the USD $2 billion sovereign, bond investors are likely to be in a positive mindset with further buying interest in short to mid tenors similar to last week. The stock market, we expect investor interest to be low with continued low activity levels as investors expect lower earnings in the June quarter impacted by the Easter Sunday attacks. We expect this investor confidence to continue in the next few weeks as well. Selected buying interest in mid-caps counters are likely to be there, while telcos and export-led companies are likely to be the preferred stocks.
We'll join you with international news right after this commercial break. Stay tuned. Donald Trump has become the first sitting US president to set foot in North Korea after meeting Kim Jong-un in the area dividing the two Koreas. Following a one-hour discussion, it was agreed to resume stalled nuclear talks. The last summit broke down in February with no progress on denuclearization in North Korea.
US President Donald Trump set foot in North Korea today, where he met its leader Kim Jong-un in the demilitarized zone between the two Koreas and agreed to resume stalled nuclear talks. The meeting, initiated by a spur-of-the-moment tweet from Trump that Kim said took him by surprise, once again displayed the rapport between the two. But they are no closer to narrowing the gap between their positions since they walked away from their summit in February in Vietnam. The two men shook hands warmly and expressed hopes for peace when they met for the third time in just over a year on the old Cold War frontier that 4 decades has symbolized the hostility between their countries, which are technically still at war. Trump and Kim then held a closed-door meeting for nearly an hour. Trump said both sides would set up teams to push forward stalled talks aimed at getting North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons, adding speed is not the thing.
It's been great. It's been great. Very historic. They were just saying, one of the folks from the media was saying this could be a very historic moment, and I guess that's what it is. But I enjoy being with you, and thank you very much.
Meanwhile, speaking to media, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said that the meeting is an expression of Trump's willingness to eliminate the unfortunate past and open a new future, while adding that their great relationship will continue to create positive events. Trump and Kim met for the first time in Singapore in June last year and agreed to improve relations and work towards the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. But the second summit in Hanoi broke down after the two sides failed to narrow differences between a US demand for North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons and a North Korean demand for sanctions relief.
Conservative leadership candidate Boris Johnson says that he takes full responsibility for the role he played during the campaigning leading up to the 2016 referendum, in which Britain voted to leave the European Union, and for the political impasse that followed. Johnson also said that if elected, he would not want to prorogue Parliament, but wouldn't rule it out.
I don't like the idea of proroguing. I'm not remotely attracted to it, but, you know, MPs have got to understand that it's their responsibility to get this thing done, and that was by far the best solution. I don't think that they are going to want a disorderly Brexit of any kind, and it's not in their interest. There's no reason why they should want the sudden imposition of tariffs and quotas. And I take personal responsibility, by the way, most importantly, for the vote to leave the European Union. I played a part in that campaign, and I'm very proud of what we did. But I take personal responsibility now for what is happening to our country, for the drift and the dither and the indecision and the failure to be sufficiently robust in the negotiations which we've seen so far. And what I want to add now is my own ability, I think, to lead us out of this mess.
Royal College beat St. Joseph's College with a bonus point to claim the School Rugby League Championship for the third consecutive year yesterday. Played at the Royal Sports Complex, Royalists were 4 points ahead of the Josephians at half-time, with the scoreboard reading 14-10. Royal secured another 10 points in the second half, while St. Joseph's could only answer with 7 points. It meant Royal scored 24 points with 4 tries and 2 conversions, while Josephians mustered 17 with 2 tries, 2 conversions and a penalty. Kandy Sports Club made easy work of their opponents to clinch the Club Rugby Sevens Championship. The match was worked off at the Racecourse International Stadium in Colombo today, and the results means that the Kandy outfit keeps their unbeaten record intact. A young CNFC side failed to match up to Kandy's intensity as the Hill Capital side defeated the Reds 24-14 in the Cup final. On to the ICC Cricket World Cup, and it is the match between England and India. Electing to bat first, England seems to have picked up their batting groove as they scored 337 runs after suffering defeats from both their previous games. Johnny Bairstow top scored for the hosts with 111 runs, while Ben Stokes chipped in with 79 runs. Chasing the victory target, India is currently on 163 for the loss of 2 wickets. And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thanks for joining us and have a pleasant evening.